Welcome to another Founder Wisdom podcast with Stephen Rothberg. I stopped our pre-conversation because we could just talk forever. Learned that Steve is also Canadian. Winnipeg is where he grew up and he's even in Montreal, my native Montreal. Nowadays, both of his kids go to McGill, very good school. I'm even having McGill CEOs on this podcast. Really high quality school, really high quality of human comes out of this school. So really glad to have Stephen on. He is the founder and chief visionary officer. I really like that title of College Recruiter job search site. So we're going to talk about that. He also has his podcast. One is called High Volume Hiring, and the other one is Inside Job Boards and Recruitment Marketplaces podcast. Pretty long title, but I love that one because job boards and marketplaces are where people recruit nowadays. We're going to talk about that as well. This podcast is brought to you by podbuyer.com, which is my podcasting agency company. If folks want to start, scale, be invited to podcasts, get sponsors, monetize podcasting basically, and just learn how to build a perennial business, because you'll probably agree with that, Steve, but podcasts allow you to learn, connect with amazing people. If you have a back end, you can create a community out of podcasts, and podcasts being the front end, sort of. They literally allow you to grow a perennial business that can stay alive for a very long time without requiring too much of your energy. So podbuyer.com, if you want to start, scale, be invited to podcast. Steve, I'm glad to have you on. Can you briefly introduce yourself and College Recruiter job search site?
Yeah, no sweat. So I founded the company 32 years ago. It was a micro business that we were doing things like publishing campus maps, selling the advertising around the border. This thing called the internet came along in the mid 90s, and we added a website for students and recent graduates that became called College Recruiter. So it's a job search site. So those of your viewers that are familiar with, say, Indeed or LinkedIn, or a decade or two ago, Monster, Career Builder were kind of at the top of the heap. The business model is that employers pay to advertise their job openings. We're global. We help about 13 million students and recent graduates a year find what we call early career jobs, anything that requires 0 to 5 years of experience. So think part-time, seasonal, internship, first, maybe second job after graduation. I live in Minneapolis, married, 3 adult kids, 2 graduated from McGill. One went to the University of Minnesota and lives in Minneapolis where we are. And I think the most important thing is that I have a dog who is very much missing me while I'm on vacation in Montreal.
Wow. Yeah, I understand the dog part. I am having my wedding in 1 month, and
Oh,
I'm relieved
congratulations.
to be away from my dogs because they're high maintenance. I'm educating 2 of them, because they're, yeah, puppies and like newly, uh, let's say, welcome to this home. So yeah, one's a street one. Actually, they're all street ones. One's the son of the other one that we recruit from the streets, and we didn't know she was pregnant.
Huh.
So I'll be relieved to not have like that much education work to do, although it's not much, to be honest, complaining here. But I'll also miss them after a couple of days, so I fully understand that one. Let's talk about the uh, birth of your business, because that was
Hmm.
32 years ago. That's a while ago. Why did you decided to go into that business, and how has it evolved through the macro trends that we've lived throughout these last 30 years, aka the dot-com boom, the 2008 crisis, and COVID?
Yeah. So the real earliest origins of the business was that I was in my 4th year, or what Americans would call a senior year, in college and undergraduate, at the University of Manitoba in Winnipeg. And I was in a small business class, and the whole class was about writing a business plan, which actually was probably one of the very best classes that I had in undergraduate. Not nearly enough business owners ever sit down to write even a 5 or 10-page business plan. We did that for my friend's business. He had a micro business on campus where he was publishing calendars and coupon books, basically selling advertising to local companies and giving the print publication, the calendar, the book away for free to the students. I went to Arizona State University when I was thinking about going to law school there, and just went to the campus, picked up a copy of the campus map, and the campus map there had advertising around the borders. I took it back to my friend and said, hey, you should do this. And he's like, that's a stupid idea. It'll never work. And so I said, well, do you mind if I do it? And he's like, sure, go for it. So I did it, and a business was born. In the early 90s, when I was publishing these campus maps, mostly in Minnesota, I had just become married, and my wife and I were writing an updated business plan to decide how do we expand the business. Because what we were doing, it was really great, but 75% of my annual revenues were coming from 8 weeks of sales. And the rest of the year, I was basically wasting my time. I mean, I was probably making below minimum wage. It just didn't make sense to continue. And what we discovered from writing the business plan was that the business was not about publishing campus maps or even selling advertising on the maps. The real competitive strength that we had was helping businesses reach students. And that was sort of an unusual thing. There were lots of little businesses started by students that would exist for a few months and then go away. But there weren't very many businesses that year after year were there and that could really build trusting relationships with the companies on and around campus. And we had already started to do that by year 3 in the business. We were in business like 3 times as long as any of our competitors were. And so when we looked at it, it's like, okay, our business really isn't about publishing maps, which are really only important in the fall when students arrive on campus. It's about helping businesses reach students. Why else do businesses want to reach students? Well, one thing is to help them hire students. And that's a big reason, that's a big need for students on campus as well. When they arrive at school when they're typically 18, they need to know their way around campus. Where are the apartments? Where are the restaurants? Where are the bars, most importantly? And when they're leaving campus, say 4 years later, when they're graduating, the thing they need more than anything else is a job. So we added an employment magazine that became called College Recruiter. And then this thing called the internet came along. And the business has definitely morphed, never pivoted, but it's really morphed over the years to stay relevant, to stay up to date with the current technology. So if you look at our technology today and how we use some machine learning, some artificial intelligence that we license from other companies, the sophistication that we have in terms of how to acquire traffic, buy traffic to our website, and then essentially sell that traffic to our customers, to employers, it is completely night and day from what it was 30 years ago. It's almost just not even the same business.
Right. What happened through COVID as well? I mean, students think they're so ill prepared for what's coming with like AI. Even myself, I thought I was ill prepared for jumping into that market. You know, I was like this chick that no one ever pushed out of the nest. And when I did push myself, I fell out flat on my face, making 300 phone calls a day as a sales rep with my French accent, talking to engineers and architects. That was like, who is this kid? You know,
Yeah.
How can folks adapt quicker to these market trends and with AI potentially coming for their job?
Yeah. So, on the employee side, or people who are searching for jobs on the candidate side, the best way that I've seen it described is that the people who do not embrace AI are the people who are the most likely to be replaced by AI. So really find a way of using tools like Chat GPT. And there are loads of other ones out there too, but that's the one that people are talking about the most. Find ways of using that to make your life more efficient at work, at home. So just like when Google came along in 1998, and people who were early adopters of Google, who started to use it instead of Yahoo or Alta Vista or Likehouse or any of the old legacy search engines that basically don't exist anymore, they discovered that Google was able to help them get information far faster and far more accurately. And that's what we're seeing with AI. So you can do things with AI to create spreadsheets of data rather than keying in data or creating all the formulas. And you can do that with Chat GPT far faster. You can draft emails and then go through and edit those. So rather than you writing it from scratch at the beginning, so even if you're not a professional writer or content producer, even if you're not writing a blog, when you're writing an email to your boss or to your coworker, you can jump over to Chat GPT and basically like, write me an email that does this. And in a couple of sentences that you input, what they call your prompt, the results that come back a couple seconds later might be a 2, 3, 4 paragraph email that you can then go through in just a few minutes and edit. So you can send a really good email in maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes of work that might have taken you half an hour before. If your coworkers, if your manager sees that you're one of the people in the office who is the best at embracing these tools and making yourself more efficient, if there are layoffs or if there are promotions, you're going to be more valuable than other people in the office. So don't hide it, embrace it, and share that. Become the go-to, become the expert in your area. You don't have to know how to code AI, but if you know how to use it, you're going to have a big advantage over your coworkers.
I'd have to start again. And if I would have to take the 9 to 5 path, I would just make a list of the folks I admire, as a youngster, and I would just outreach to them and seeing if they're hiring. What's stopping younger folks from doing that?
There's nothing stopping them, but where most students and recent graduates are employed, like the companies, the kinds of organizations that hire the vast majority of students and recent graduates are the largest organizations. The small companies, the local retailer, the pizza shop down the street, your uncle's manufacturing business that has 50 employees in an industrial office, they do hire college and university students and recent graduates, but not nearly as many as the large Fortune 1000 companies, government agencies. Those organizations have very large formalized programs. Some of them are now called like early career hiring or early career departments or something along those lines. Others still use terminology like college recruiting or university relations, but they have big budgets. They send recruiters and hiring managers to different college campuses. They use sites like College Recruiter to advertise their jobs online, and they hire, some estimates are 70% of students and recent grads. And it's not just in the US, it's the same in Canada, and it's the same in most industrialized countries. Because it's the large employers that hire the bulk of young people, of college and university educated young people, it's unlikely that you as a young adult, somebody early in your career, it's unlikely that you're going to know somebody in that organization that's a family member, a friend. But if you do, or if you know somebody who knows somebody, that is your best way of getting a job. That's networking. And so most people get hired by responding to job advertising, whether it's in print, which of course is less and less, or online. But your best chance of getting hired is if you know somebody. A lot of organizations, the best strategy is to find somebody you know, tell them that you're going to be applying or just applied to a particular job, and then also apply online. So do it through networking and also apply online. When you tell somebody within the company that you're going to apply or you're interested in this job, or maybe even that you just applied 5 minutes ago, what tends to happen is that person will tell somebody in talent acquisition or human resources. And so the person who gets the resumes and is reviewing them, they'll pay a little more attention to your resume or CV. And that will help to ensure, there's no guarantee, but it'll help to ensure that you're going to get an interview. That's a huge part of the battle, is just to be heard.
Do you think that in 10 years from now, most workers will be entrepreneurs and won't be working for someone, granted that the future is companies managing a bunch of AIs or individuals of, let's say, two co-founders building a business of billions with 1,000 of AIs just under them? What do you see? How do you see the corporate structure and the company tree changing in the next 10 years?
Yeah, I do not see most people essentially running their own businesses, whether they're the only employee or maybe they have a few, because I don't think that most people have the interest or the skills to do that. I think the reality is the vast majority of people want a job not for personal fulfillment reasons, not because they want to grow as an individual or contribute something to society. They want a job to make money, to buy food, to pay for the rent, and buy medicine. And that's about it. So they go to work, they earn their paycheck, and then the rest of the, the 2/3 of the rest of the day, that's when they actually live. I think if most people didn't have to work, most people would not work. Doesn't mean they're going to sit on the couch all day, but they'll find something else that they're productive, that's of interest to them. But when you look at the vast majority of people in the workforce, almost everybody, a huge percentage, are hourly workers that just kind of like go to work, get their work done, go home, and they're cool with that.
That's like 95% of the workforce right there. And the
Yeah.
5% like entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs, if you want.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, I like to say a mentor of mine taught me years and years ago that if you can do 3 things in life, that's successful. And so the first thing is pay your bills. The second thing is be happy. And the third thing is leave the world a little bit of a better place than you found it. If you can do those 3 things, you're successful. So if that means going and working as a cashier in a discount store, what's wrong with that? That's great. There's just absolutely nothing wrong with that. But on the other hand,
society needs that, right? Like we need a cashier to take the orders until obviously a robot can do it, because it's sort of a simplistic job. And I do agree that people didn't choose to be born on this planet Earth,
Yeah, not too many of us anyway, right?
Yeah, so why not give them the right to do whatever they want? Their parents chose to birth them. So yeah, I'm all in with UBI eventually. That I think AI will certainly help building. But let me ask you this question: what are your objectives this year? What do you want to accomplish on your side?
Yeah, well, one thing is that about a year and a half ago, we started to with our what we call our international strategy. Until about a year and a half ago, we only accepted job posting ads in the US and Canada, and in Canada only in English. which meant that one of the two largest provinces, Quebec, we really didn't have very much business in there at all, because Quebec is French speaking, as you and I were talking about. A year and a half ago, we started to accept job postings anywhere in the world, as long as they were in English, because that's the technology of our site was only able to handle English language postings. Now we can accept postings in any major language. What I'm looking forward to over the next year is that our international business, which right now is about a third of our total business, I think will be at least half. The way that we sell our job posting advertising to employers is mostly on cost per click or cost per lead or application basis. And that is rapidly spreading to the UK, to Europe, and it's just starting to spread to Asia, to Australia, New Zealand, et cetera. As more and more companies around the world, employers around the world, feel more comfortable advertising their jobs the way that we are really good at running them, that's going to give us a real advantage. It also means that we need to get better at understanding how business is done in New Zealand or Malaysia or South Africa or Nigeria versus Montana versus Minnesota versus Florida. It's different. We're not going to change an employer in Malaysia. We need to adapt our business practices to align better with them. And I think we're going to see a big change internally in our ability to do that over the next year.
Last, how are you using the podcast to grow your business?
So before I started to do podcasting a couple of years ago, I was doing, and there were some other people in the organization that would do it some also, but it was kind of it fit more into my role than anybody else's. I was doing a lot of speaking at conferences. So I'd, prepare a PowerPoint, propose a presentation to the organizer, go back and forth, this will work, that won't work, whatever, get accepted, prepare the PowerPoint, travel there, be at the conference for 2, 3, 4 days, airline costs, hotels, et cetera. And then you're usually in a hotel banquet room and you might have 100 or 200 or 300 people in the room, potential customers that are listening to you. And then maybe afterwards, you might be networking with them in person, have a beer and have a conversation. Maybe they'll become a customer, maybe they won't. Podcasting replaced that. I can do all of that now in under an hour from my desk. And so I'm the co-host of 2 different podcasts. So every week there's a podcast, and just like this, I'm a guest on other podcasts as well. It's allowed me to really scale the what we call thought leadership, sharing information, dialoguing, learning from others. There's no way that I could be speaking at a couple of conferences a week, practically every week of the year, but I can easily do that with podcasting.
There you go. Steve, thank you for showing today. Where can people find out more about you?
Sure. Shoot me an email, steven@collegerecruiter.com. Charles, it's been awesome.
Thank you. I'm Charles Cormier, founder of founderwisdompodcast.com, and that was Steve Rothberg.